Hey guys, and welcome to the episode 1 of the ROTJ Studio Scale build and assembly videos. So, our first episode is going to cover the assembly process for the body of the ROTJ. So as you can see, I have laid out all the parts for the body, including the bags for the screws. So you can freeze this and you can grab all of those parts and those bags. And I'm going to go over what parts go out of those bags right now. So out of bag M, you're going to find this large screw. You're going to need that. Out of bag H, you're going to grab a bunch of these smaller screws here. Out of bag P, you're going to grab this little tiny long screw here. While we're on this side, out of your bag of gun barrels and brass parts, go ahead and grab this guy right here. Out of bag N and O, you're going to need 3 of these tiny little set screws and then 3 of the larger head screws. So go ahead and grab those. 1 is going to go for the end here, and then 2 are down here. Out of bag K, you're going to need the one labeled L, and that's this one here. And then inside the bag with the washers, you're going to need those 2 washers, and you can go ahead and set them up just like this. They're just sitting free floating on the screw right here. Out of bag I, go ahead and grab 2 of these screws with the button head or the regular head. And then out of your bag of snap rings, you're going to grab the 2 smaller snap rings. And then these are the parts in their appropriate positions that we're going to lay them out. Make sure that this central piece here, you've got your tiny little block for your armature mount. The screw head is going to face you, so make sure that that's correct. Make sure the bump out faces upwards. On this part, make sure that the bump out faces away from you. And that's kind of how this is all going to get set up. For your Allen keys, you're going to need a number 2, a number 3, and then for your tiny little set screws, we are using an H.09, and that fits the tiny set screws. So again, go ahead and pause the video now, make sure you've got all your parts, and then we're going to begin. So let's go ahead and start with this little section here. So the first thing that we're going to do is grab this guy right here. Again, bump out facing upward and the screw hole facing towards us. We're going to insert that piece, grab our tiny screw. We're going to insert that into this longer groove. So as you're screwing this in, you just want to get this finger tight so that this piece here can still go up and down and it can slide back and forth. So we're just going to screw that just barely tight enough. Okay? So that's it for this piece. So that's tight. Next step, we need to lock these guys in place. So Justin's going to go ahead and grab me some super glue. I'm going to show you a little trick to get some extra friction on these guys. You can use this method on both the Empire Strikes Back or the ESB. You can use this on both the ESB and the ROTJ versions to add some friction to these guys and help this to remain a little bit more stable. We're also going to use a C-clamp to screw these in, and that's going to help you not strip out the screws. So our first step is going to be to grab some super glue, and we're just going to put a good drop of super glue just like this on our pin. And then we're going to run it in here, make a circle, and we're going to lock that in place. Don't worry that you're not going to be able to spin it with your fingers. Totally fine. Same thing with this guy. Spin it around. There we go. Now all we have to do is grab one of these thigh pieces, and we're going to use this to spin it. This acts as our little wrench. And now we've filled in any gaps that you might have from the metal and create a nice friction-full surface. So these guys are in. The next step is we need to add our little snap rings. Okay, so we've got our 2 snap rings installed. So now these guys can't come out. If you're having trouble with the snap rings going on, that is not something that is 100% necessary. It's authentic, but it is not strictly necessary, because once we clamp these things down and provide any type of force, they're not coming out. Remember, on the ESB version, all we did was insert these into a solid block. There was no snap ring or anything holding them in, and there was no way that they were coming out. So don't worry if you have any issues with these. You can leave them off if you want. When you're installing this block, remember to check your screw here, because the screw is justified to the bottom the way that I'm doing this. Flip it over so that it is justified towards the top, towards this bump out. And that is going to be the direction that you need to make sure that everything's going on, okay? Then get everything tightened up. Now, you've got your little unit here. Let's go ahead and grab this screw. We're going to feed this into the center here. We're going to grab our number 3, and we're going to screw this in. And this provides friction against the motion of the slide going back and forth. This was just an extra added detail, an extra feature that we saw inside the armature. So it's just another thing that you can adjust. You can see here that that screw is coming out, and it's going to press against our little block here. And I'm just going to screw it in just like that. Barely finger tight. So now this can still go up and down, but it can't go back and forth. So this unit is now ready. Again, you can push this screw in to lock this up. This can go back and forth. This can go up and down. Okay, now that we've got our piece put together right here, we're going to attach this whole unit into the body through these holes on this back block. Again, make sure that your holes are justified towards the top. So you've got a bump out here, and then your holes are facing the upwards position. That way, when you place this downwards, everything should sit flush. When you look through this hole, you should see everything line up nicely. So we're going to grab one of our larger screws. We're just going to stick it right in here, and it should not take much effort to get all of that to sit real nice. Don't screw it all the way in on one side, because then you can, there's not much room, not much wiggle room, but you could offset it from one side to the other. So screw them in kind of equally. So now I'm going to get this one side locked in. Just one turn past finger tight. One turn past finger tight. Okay, guys. Now that we've got this part installed, we're going to go ahead and install the back panels on the bottom. So they go on here like this. So this one's super easy. There's almost no way that you can install this one incorrectly. So we can set that to the side. This one, however, we've got to make sure that we install this in the correct orientation. So we've got an angle here that's going to face towards the back. And you want to make sure that this little block is oriented correctly. If this screw is loose, regardless of how you installed your axle, this piece can flip around. While we were installing the rest of this, ours flipped around when I put my screw in. So I ended up having to back this out and turn this back around and then screw this back in tight. And what this does is, again, it prevents it from going up and down. That's part of the process. Like, one of the cool aspects of the armature is that this can angle itself up and down. That little piece in there locks it into position. So the tighter that little screw is, the more rigid this piece is going to be. Like, it has a little bit of a wiggle, but we can make that wiggle go away. So again, just make sure that this faces towards the front of the vehicle. This is the front of the vehicle, okay? And then this angle part faces towards the back of the vehicle. Then we're going to grab our H screws. We're going to go ahead and get that installed with our number 2 Allen. Okay, we've got our top pieces, or our bottom pieces, excuse me, installed. While we're still down here, let's go ahead and install our 2 armature pull screws. So you've got a little post here, and that inserts inside here, okay? Don't have to install that right now. Probably would get in your way. So we're just going to drop these in. Install that just like that. You've got your big screw here. Let's go ahead and install that guy. Now that is going to be a bigger than a 3. I think, maybe. It might still be a 3. Yeah, no, that's still 3. So again, there's no axle in here yet for the neck. So as soon as you get resistance, go ahead and stop or maybe back it up just a little bit. Just going to get that screw installed. And then the last piece of the pie is this guy. So this is the main element that pushes this guy up and down. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our little screw here and we're going to back it up. So that allows this to move up and down. Then the little tricky bit on this is you've got to insert your screw, and then we're going to put these washers in here. We're going to use some tweezers to do this, but you've got to insert your washers over this screw, and then we're going to use some super glue to get them locked in place, and I'll show you why after we do that. Okay, cool. Went ahead and just screwed this in a little bit. Okay, so we're going to get our washers installed here. And then I'm going to get this. So if you rotate the bottom of your screw here, you can see that your armature back goes up and down. So we're going to get this put into the middle. Then I'm going to grab some super glue. And some spray. Tilt up just a little bit so we can see what you got. And I just put some super glue on the threading right above that small washer. And then I'm using some super glue spray to solidify it. So now that washer set locks this in. So now the screw is not going to fall out. And you can see that by turning this, we go up and we go down. Now, if you want a stronger bond, you can mix some epoxy to do the same thing. But really all you're trying to do is just cover those threads so that that washer grouping does not come out. So now this is completely movable. It can go all the way down and it can go all the way up. This is a really cool feature that allows you to create some very interesting positions. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that these are nice and locked in, because this guy does have some weight to it. So I don't know how much you can see in there. It is a little bit dark, but so I have a nice little ball of glue on top. So we're going to get this put into the central position. Then I'm going to go back in here, grab our screw that's in the middle, and we're just going to lock this in place. So as soon as you get pressure, nice little quarter turn, and now you're locked. See, now that's how you position it. So again, if you're wanting to position the angle, loosen the screw in the center, adjust your angle here, then once you like it, tighten up that screw. So it's kind of a back and forth process, and you're gonna have to remove your pull to be able to do that because you need to relock that. So it's a multi-angle process, but this is how it was done. This is what we figured out through lots and lots of picture reference to how they set that up. Okay, so all of that is figured out. So let's go ahead and grab these bags. We'll get them out of the way. And then we'll move on to plastic. So still out of our H box, forgot we've got our two hip pieces here. So those two screws in the bottom, I'm going to grab standard 3-inch C-clamp. And let's go ahead and I'll show you how to set these up so that you don't strip your screws by trying to tighten this stuff down. So it's a little finicky because you only have like an edge to work with. But basically you're going to, it's hard to do this on camera as well. Okay, so there's not very much surface area down here to be able to clamp to. So I ended up going all the way to the top on this side and clamping. If you wanted to, I know we've way past that point here, but you could clamp before putting this on, but it works just as well. You can see that I have not bent this super far, and a lot of that has to do with all of this just being so thick, but there is an angle here. So now all we've got to do is drop our screw in. And this is back to a number 2. So it's tight here. Now I've just reached tightness. I'm going to go ahead and do probably about a half turn further till I'm getting a lot of pressure. That's it. Stop. Now we just back off. And this sucker is tight. You know, there's not going to be much movement. It should be very difficult for you to grab this and move it. Nigh on impossible. See, it's difficult. So that's what's going to hold it in place and keep that pose. So you should be able to have this thing posed. You can always go back and tighten this further. You can use a bigger C-clamp to get even more pressure. Again, it's all about getting leverage, but you should be able to get this to where this whole thing can be posed without this armature being used, and the whole leg should be able to hold up itself. So this is probably 10 pounds, 15 pounds of pressure to be able to make that rotation. So we're going to do the same thing to the other side, and then that's going to wrap up the middle portion of the body. looking like the end result of this is going to be very cool. Okay, so we're all set. So again, all of these are locked down. You've got your screws in place. So this is the main body armature. So next up, if we remove all of these screws, you are now going to need D for main body panels. You're going to need some G for rear body panel mounts. And then you're going to need all of these pieces of plastic. So let me get these lined up for you so that you can then take a screen grab of what we've got. And then we will just one at a time go through where each piece goes. And pretty much all of these get screwed on. So that's one of the things that makes this one of the more amazing detail kits, is that anybody can do this. You know, you need to be able to work with your hands a bit, but this does not require a huge amount of modeling skill to be able to accomplish. So let's go ahead and start with the bottom. So let's start with these 4 pieces here. This is for the bottom. You're going to need just D for this. So let's go ahead and pour some of these guys out. Let's check our sizing. So it is not a number 2. Let's see if it's a number 1.5. Yes. So number 1.5 fits this guy. Yeah, number 1.5. Okay. So start from the front and work our way back. The 3 divots point towards the front. So you're just going to drop this in place, and you've got 4 screws. And let's just go ahead and screw this in. You do not need glue. If you would like to apply some glue, you can, but it is not necessary. That means I have to strong just a little bit. Okay, so for these back pieces, so you've got a big hole and then your offset angles. So that big hole shows your screw hole for your leg axles. So you can see that it looks just like this. So just make sure that they're angled just like that. Should be pretty simple. Thank you. Just put it down. Okay, so we've got our bottom all installed. So let's go ahead and flip this over. And we're going to start working on the top. So we've got our front. We've got top plate here. So we know that that goes there. Then we've got our front piece, and the curved portion is going to go downwards. And that goes just like this. Then we have the back. That's going to go overlapping slightly on this plate, and that goes just like this. And then we will get our rear section installed. So let's go ahead and get these pieces screwed on. Okay, so when you're all done, this is what you should be left with. Remember, you're curved towards the bottom. All your screws are installed. Everything should be nice and tight. Everything fits perfectly. So now We're going to set this to the side for a sec, and we're going to work on this guy. So when we install this, you can see that your grills go in here just like that. And then they're just going to get glued in. So we're going to super glue those in place first, then we'll install the back. So I'm just putting glue on bottom tab, outer, and upper. Just get that pressed into place. And then same thing here. And then just get that pressed into place. All right, so we've got our back piece here. So you can see we've got 2 screw holes towards the bottom. So all we've got to do is screw it down to the back. So switching to the screw head, we're using a T5, which is a Torx head. I'm going to assume that this is a 1 if you're going to do an Allen head, but I'm not for positive because we're just using what we've got handy. So again, don't over tighten any of this stuff. Remember, it's plastic. Okay, so that's all secure there. Okay, these are the last 3 parts that we've got to work with on the front, and they are all the gluing that we really have to do. So let's start with these guys. So we are working from the left-hand side, so facing the front, or with the front facing away from us, we're just going to rotate this. These 2 circles face downwards, as well as this pin, it faces downwards. We're going to put some glue, super glue, in this slot. And then we're just going to put it right here on this slot. Just like this. Boom. We're going to flip to the other side. We're going to put some glue in this slot. If you want to double up, you can also put a little bit of glue on the back. I'm going to go ahead and do a squirt. All right, so next we have these triangular pieces. And the way to tell which side is which is the gluing surface here, this peg, is flush with the top. So we know that this one goes on the left-hand side because the peg is going to be flush with the top. And it's going to fit inside the square here and then against the metal rim. And we're just going to go ahead and use super glue for both portions. If you'd like to, you can use the rubberized Gorilla Clear glue for the back and super glue for the front. That's completely up to you, but it is going to be rigid either way. So switch to the other side. Okay, switch back over here. Now we've got our little fenders, and you've got a groove on the back. So that groove goes in the groove that's on the top surface here. And then the fender sticks out to cover over what we just built. So that's how you're going to know what size or what side goes on what. Okay. So there you have it. There's our body module. Everything's nice and installed. We'll go over adjustment again in a later video, but our installation process is now complete on the body.